Hello everyone and welcome to episode 60 of the Layton Fitness podcast. Now in today's episode we're going to discuss why I don't include any front delt work with myself and any of my coaching and personal training clients. Now you're probably wondering what is the reason for this. Essentially the deltoid is split into three areas. We've got the anterior delt, the part of the front of the shoulder. We've then got the lateral head, the bit in the middle of the shoulder, and then we've got the rear delt or posterior delt at the back of the shoulder. Now the key reason why I don't include a front or anterior delt specific isolation exercise within a program is just think about for a second, when you look at exercises, it's important to note that there's very few exercises that are just hitting the specific muscle group in isolation. So let's just take a look at this. For example, any pressing movement is going to have a lot of anterior delt activation. So let's think about things like the bench press, dumbbell bench press, any dumbbell fly or cable fly movement, anything like dips, anything like a close grip bench press. All of these big heavy pressing movements are going to incorporate a lot of anterior delt work into those movements. Now why is this important? The reason why I say this is I see this all the time with people adding extra isolation front delt exercises, things like front delt raise, etc. But the problem is they're already doing so much anterior delt work within their normal pressing movements, so they end up having rounded shoulders. And you've probably seen this if you think about the people in your gym specifically. A vast number of people that have this really poor posture where their shoulders are just rounded forward, and one of the key reasons for this is just overemphasis on pressing movements in addition to anterior delt isolation exercises, and also coupled with not enough pulling movements, any back lat exercise as well to try and balance this out. And this is really important. The big takeaway is for most individuals any isolation front delt exercise just are not necessary, given the fact that this specific muscle group is getting targeted with any of your big heavy pressing movements, even your chest pressing movements and fly movements, in addition to obviously all of your other overhead shoulder work as well. So this brings me on to my next point. It's really critical that you balance up your pressing with your pulling moves. Therefore, make sure there's a similar amount of volume for your pulling, your back exercises, in addition to your pressing movements. Now, the one caveat with this would be if you have some really big weaknesses with regards to your potential chest development. As a result, you're adding more volume to these big pressing movements to try and improve this area. But for the most part, there should be a pretty even balance between your pressing movements, so bench press, overhead press, any variations of these fly movements, and then also a balance of heavy rowing movements, pull-ups, chin-ups, deadlifts, any of these big back exercises to help balance out the shoulder muscle to give you more of a balanced physique and to try and prevent any of these shoulders from rounding forward. Additionally, this brings me on to my next point. As I briefly alluded to a minute or two ago, as you become more advanced, you really want to try and make your training program specific to some of your weaker areas. And therefore, this basically means adding more volume. So volume is sets times reps times load, but in reality, this really means more sets, more exercises for some of these weaker areas. So to do that, you probably need to reduce the volume for some of your stronger body parts to allow for this. Otherwise it's going to be very difficult to recover from. If you're your traditional pro and you've just added more volume to these weaker areas, you can do, but in most situations it's better to add more volume to weaker body parts and then just pull back the volume slightly of some of your stronger body parts. And by doing this over a chronic period of time, with the caveat you're consuming sufficient protein and a energy surplus needed for new muscle growth, you're going to see some very pleasing improvements with regards to some of your weaker areas. Additionally, if you're spending too much time on these pressing movements and or adding more front delt isolation work, try and come away with that and try and make sure we've got more of a balanced ratio between pressing and pulling movements. So I hope you found this useful. I know this is more of a quicker episodes this week, and I just wanted to briefly discuss this common problem I see all the time with regards to these rounded shoulders because of too much front delt work in relation to any pulling work and back work within your routine. So I hope you found this useful. Big takeaways: add more volume to your weaker body parts and try and get more of a balanced ratio between your pushing and pull movements. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to speaking to you next week. If you're still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton Fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page. You can download that immediately. Additionally, feel free to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can also listen to the rest of the episodes on my website as well, and you can also learn more about myself and some of the services and products I have available on the website as well. Thank you very much. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Take care.